boy Naughty Dread, VVC Sports.com. I got everybody introduce yourself, man.
Alright, my name's Cowher. Call me KD. Georgia State, 790 the zone.
Torrance Wilson.
Jason Bolivar.
Ronnie Foster, Memphis, Tennessee.
Sanchez, co-host of the brand on VVCSports.com.
Alright, gentlemen. Last week we was talking about playoffs and we was talking about coaches. We saw Pete Carroll leave USC, he go to Seattle. We saw Kiffin leave Tennessee. And now we got a situation in Buffalo where nobody really wanted the coaching gig. Why Chan Gailey?
Because no one else wants it. I mean, you don't know what you're getting in Buffalo. That team could be playing in Toronto in like 3 years. It's like a black hole for players, and you know, this is like 4th, 5th choice for them. So I mean, Chan Gailey, why not? I guess.
You know, I kind of disagree. I think Chan Gailey is a really good offensive coach. I think they got some really good offensive pieces up there with Marshawn Lynch and Terrell Owens and Lee Evans. When you factor in the Michael Vick factor, he might be going to Buffalo. It's a big rumor. So I think that they're looking at the possibility of having a team that can take their place in the AFC East with slipping teams like the Patriots. And you have the Jets who made the playoffs and 9-7 record. So you know, you look at the division, a lot of teams are faltering.
Well, you say you brought up the fact that he was an offense coordinator in Dallas. He was head coach at Georgia Tech.
He was head coach at Dallas.
And Dallas just for one season. And he got fired as the offense coordinator from Kansas City 2 weeks before the season.
Yeah.
Does his credentials say that he deserves this head coaching position?
I mean, well, nowadays, there's a lot of people without any credentials that's getting jobs. I mean, like, look at Lane Kiffin. He's hopping from job to job without even really proving himself. But back to what he said about the whole Buffalo Bills thing, I mean, T.O., he's on his last leg. Let's be real.
Yeah, he's a free agent, so he can be
not
out
just
that mix.
And then, you know, Marshawn Lynch is a talent, but he was benched at the end of the season for Fred Jackson. So we don't know how that situation can play out. Lee Evans, I mean, he's a one-trick pony, you know, just a deep threat. And Trent, I mean, if you want to put all your stock in Michael Vick, and I'm a huge Michael Vick fan, but if you want to put all your stock in Michael Vick to come there, who's not really known for airing the ball out, to a one-trick pony like Lee Evans, and if you're a coach, like he said, man, they just had to get what they could. They couldn't get Cowher, they couldn't get Shanahan. You know, the big names didn't want to touch it, so I agree. They just, you know, had to get what they could.
So is he a good fit?
Right now, I would say, like, yeah, for right now, because the offense took a huge hit. Remember, their offensive line is in shambles, and then on top of that, we don't know what T.O.'s coming back. Far like the running back spot is cool. They don't have an established quarterback, so they had to go in the draft to get an established quarterback, which probably might be Jimmy Clausen or Colt McCoy. And if with Vick, get Michael Vick, you don't know. You really don't know if he's going to stay in Philadelphia or not.
Well, we all say that nobody wanted this gig. But you had, when they fired Dick Duran, Perry Fuel, he went in, he was the interim coach. He didn't get the job, he interviewed for it. Leslie Frazier, who's Minnesota defensive coordinator, we just saw the job he did against Dallas this week. He doesn't get the opportunity. He only interviews for Rooney Rule type situations. Is the Rooney Rule a joke?
No, I think it's necessary. I really do think it's necessary. I mean, because you open up the playing field. You know, I don't think a lot of coaches would have gotten consideration without the Rooney Rule, my honest opinion. Because I think some owners already have in their mind made up who they want, and they don't even get. Not to say it's like a racist type thing, but if a guy gets the opportunity, you know, to come in there and and interview for the job. Because like Mike Tomlin, I don't think he was a top consideration for that Pittsburgh job, but due to the Rooney Rule, they probably interviewed him and they liked him and they we're going with this guy.
Well, okay, here's the problem with the Rooney Rule, and I'll say in the situation of the Steelers it works, but I mean the Steelers are always going to follow the rule to the T because Dan Rooney owns the Steelers.
Exactly.
Okay, that's when it works. When it doesn't work, and when, quite frankly, it isn't necessary, is when there's a guy like Shanahan or Cower out there that is a, you know, once-in-a-generation coach, and you know you want him. So, you know what? Don't interview someone just because the rule says so. Interview them because you want to interview them. And you're right. Tomlin was not the first choice. Ken Wisenhunt was. And they interviewed both of them, and quite frankly, they would have been. I'm sure they would have been happy with either of them. But
Mhm.
Tomlin's a great coach, and that's when the rule works. But I think it definitely needs to be
If
tweaked.
I can add one thing, I don't want to cut anybody off. I think it's something, not necessarily the Rooney Rule, the title, but something like that needs to be implemented in college.
Yeah.
But well, in this situation in Buffalo, this is not a situation where Shanahan or Cowher, of course they wanted those guys, but all those guys turned the job down.
Right.
So how do you get the Gailey when you have guys like Perry Fuel who people know that he can do the job? Leslie Frazier can do the
He
job.
gonna get the job when they had him as the interim, then they fired him and said, okay, dude, you can come back.
But my question is why? Does he not have just as good as
I
credentials
mean,
as Chan Gailey?
I think the thing is, I think a lot of it has to do with history. I think a lot of it has to do with tradition. I think that the Rooney Rule is a double-edged sword. And, regardless of the fact that, the rule may be in place, you still have people who do not care to abide by the rule, or they will use the rule, to their advantage. So if you can interview a coach just on the humbug and then bring in another coach backdrop because you already know you're going to hire them, then that's what they're going to do.
But they need that
I'm just saying,
chance.
but they need that chance, but it's kind of like a slap in the face.
Yeah, it's not a real chance.
If Shanahan with the Redskins, they knew they wanted him from the jump. You know what I'm saying? Like they were trying to get dude before they even fired
Yeah.
Right.
Jim Zorn. So why am I, as a black guy, gonna come in just to
Be the token guy
yeah,
for that.
you know what I'm saying? When I know you've been going here for weeks.
Don't go for the interview.
I was gonna-
You know what I'm saying?
I was
But you
gonna say,
can't
like,
turn down.
you can't turn down
interviews
Exactly.
for head
Yeah.
coaching jobs.
Exactly. You can't.
And I was gonna say, like, each team's trying to make a splash. Period. And with each coach, you gotta make that splash higher and be able to sell it to the people that are paying for the tickets. And the same thing with you get Chan Gailey, and then like, okay, how can we sell Chan Gailey at Buffalo? But when you get Mike Shanahan in Washington, a big time owner, you can sell Mike Shanahan because of the credentials that he has. Now, if you get Leslie Frazier in Seattle, it's kind of like Seattle's a so-called good organization in the NFC West, but you can't sell Leslie Frazier. You can sell Pete Carroll because of his background, his credentials. Where he came from.
In college.
Well, we're saying we can't sell Leslie Frazier and Pete Fuel.
Pete Carroll was successful in the NFL too. He
Perry-
went to the Super Bowl with the Patriots.
As a coordinator.
Okay,
I mean, but wasn't he the head coach of the Patriots?
Nah,
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he was.
no, he was.
He was.
No, not when they went
Not when
to
they
the
went to
Super
Super
Bowl.
Bowl. Bill Parcells was the
Yeah.
coach.
But he had a winning record.
Yeah,
Well,
he
he was like
that was
18
it.
and 14.
He did have record
He had a
as
winning
head
record.
coach.
Yeah,
But-
33 and 31.
Let's take an example that could be in the near future. You look at the Chicago Bears. They've said that they're keeping Lovie Smith, a black coach, this year. But next year, there's no guarantees. If Bill Cowher is still available, they've said that they're interested, and he said that he's interested. Okay, so you know that Bill Cowher could be the coach,
Exactly.
replacing a black coach. Now, the right thing to do is to interview a lot of candidates, especially minority candidates, because this is a minority seat, a minority job. But this is Bill Cowher we're
Exactly,
talking
it's Bill
about.
Cowher.
Leslie Frazier goes in there, he doesn't have a chance.
And I agree. I mean, when the situation where Bill Cowher is available and he is willing to take the job,
Right.
but when you're in a situation like Buffalo, no one wants your job.
Right.
Go to somebody else who's been putting in the work, like a Leslie Frazier. or
My
Perry Fuel.
final thought on this whole situation, and I'm gonna look at it from the perspective I was an owner. It's my money. I want to hire who I want to hire.
I agree. And Pittsburgh went out to a Minnesota defensive coordinator named Mike Tomlin, and Indianapolis they brought up Jim Caldwell once
He came
Tony Dungy was out the door.
He was a
So-
coach in Wayne, though.
So I mean, true, but yet and still, Pittsburgh went to Super Bowl last year.
Right.
Mike Tomlin. Jim
'Cause that's
Caldwell
a-
is a good situation, and he's actually coming to a game this weekend.
Mhm.
But they play a team that they could have bumped, and now that this team can go to the Super Bowl by beating them, is this gonna come back to bite Indianapolis in the behind?
Definitely. You never give away a game. Especially on Sundays, man. You play to win the game. You put the pads on, you play to win. You don't play, we're going to rest our starters, and then, you don't give an opportunity to a team like the Jets who thrives on competition, who thrives on beating you down, who thrives on hitting you consistently and making you wish that you weren't playing them.
That's old news.
I disagree.
If they would have lost last weekend, then you can bring up all this sitting the starters, blah blah blah. But that's a mute point now. Like now it's whoever wins is the better team.